Hi, this is Chris Frew with BioBuzz at the QNova LifeSciences Partnering Forum. And I'm excited to sit down today with Stephen Chelberg, who is a global life sciences practice lead at Squire Patton Boggs. Thank you for joining me today.
Chris, thank you very much for having me. Maybe just to start to give a brief introduction about Squire Patton Boggs. We're an international law firm. We have offices in over 40 cities around the world, over 26 different countries where we have offices. We have over 1,600 lawyers. And we've been around for quite a while. Our roots trace back to the late 1800s in the United States, primarily in Ohio, and then also in the UK and the Midlands. So Leeds, Manchester, and Birmingham. So very much focused originally in the manufacturing sector. And as you mentioned, I'm global head of our life science practice. Briefly, to talk a little bit about
Absolutely.
that, we have about 275 lawyers globally in our life science practice, and we represent over 500 companies involved in the life science sector. And we provide a full range of services. I think we're really well known for intellectual property, and we have practitioners that worked with life science companies and then joined us in the patent group, also patent litigation, and then on commercial transactions, which is a lot of what I do, helping not just U.S. but companies from all over the world. And we represent a good number of the top 20 life science companies around the world, including, for example, Johnson and Johnson, Bayer, and some of the really well-known players in the life science sector.
Well, I'm really excited to talk with you today because, here at the conference, we've heard a lot of themes around, global and more global transactions taking place. So I'd love to hear your perspective on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think these days it's you see life science companies not just focusing on their home markets. I do a lot of work with startup companies, and obviously they look at the U.S. and Europe, but also Asia as well. And we do, in my case, I do a lot of work with Japanese pharma companies, and almost invariably we're doing deals around the world. One example is a couple of years ago, we actually worked on the sale of the diagnostics business of Olympus, and there were 30 some different companies in about 27 different countries, and it was an asset sale. So it was incredibly. We talk about international. I mean, I think all around the world where we were working with both with our lawyers and where we didn't have an office working with local lawyers to do the transaction.
Yeah, I'm sure that was a lot of coordination went into that transaction.
It was crazy, and the hours because we were working literally around around the world, and we had a team. I was the overall project manager and headed up Asia as well, but we had sort of deputies appointed for one for EMEA and then also one for the Americas,
Yeah.
just to coordinate things.
Well, I understand you do a lot of work in Asia, and you were talking to some of the trends coming out of maybe Japan that you're seeing.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think Japanese life science companies historically were looking to license in things, finding technology abroad, and that still exists. But we've also seen Japanese companies dispose of assets which are not key to their core strategy. Or we've seen shifts. There are a number of companies that have shifted to focus on rare diseases, which we're helping them out with some of their transactions. So and I think Japanese companies are becoming more sophisticated in terms of what they're looking at, and that's I mean obviously the large companies like Takeda and Otsuka have been doing that all along, but even some of the more mid-sized companies are doing that as well.
So is this a trend you see pharma paying more attention to?
Yeah, definitely, definitely see that happening as well.
What are some of the other what are some of the other transactions types that you're seeing these days?
A number of things. One is I've seen investments. A couple of things. First of all, investments in early stage companies. Typically, companies, large pharma companies, are looking at a startup that would be in like phase two sort of a little bit of a de-risk type a product or asset. But I've seen a couple of deals early on. In some cases where there was a bet on the technology, a particular drug development, and in this case, it would involve bispecific or trispecific antibodies directed at particular indications. And our client was interested in the technology, and actually, in one case, it's been a huge success. There are two other programs in the pipeline as well, where they've done that. So some of the companies are looking at much earlier stage stuff. Um, so I'm not sure if it's a trend, but at least it's something that we've seen happen.
And Steve, how did you get involved in life sciences? Like, is that a passion of yours, or?
Yeah, it goes back to 1992, and well, sort of in high school, I was interested in chemistry and biology. My mom was a biologist, and I actually wanted to be a marine biologist at one point. I loved Jacques Cousteau when I was a kid, but how I got involved was I was a lawyer, had a focus on IP, and one day a friend said, "Hey, we have this company, and they've signed what they think is a non-binding letter of intent. Can you help?" But the other side is saying they have to put in like $20 million into this company. And I said, "Okay, happy to help them out." I took a look at the LOI. Unfortunately, even though it was titled a letter of intent, it was actually an agreement. And in looking at it, yes, the client indeed had an obligation to invest $20 million. So what I told him was, well, the company you've invested in was a South San Francisco startup company, and I said, my guess is they're going to come back and they're going to need some more money. And when they do that, we can then renegotiate the terms of the deal. So what happened is that indeed happened several times. So the first time they came back and I said, "Oh, you remember that agreement? We're going to change a few things if you want our money." And we did that. And the client I was working with wanted to do the deal to have access to this drug development platform technology to allow them to take it forward. What happened was that actually didn't prove out for them, but this company had, I think our client invested at an average price of a little under $2. The company went out and IPO at $7.50 a share. At that time, the client had 16.5% of the company. They had a product, oncology product, that got to phase three. The stock price went up to in the mid to high 20s. And I told the client, I'm not sure whether it's going to be successful or not. You're not in it to make a ton of money. And we hired an investment bank to slowly offload their shareholdings so we wouldn't affect the market. And we basically sold out, and they made enough to build an R&D and headquarters building. I was a hero. It had nothing really to do with me other than to point this out. And then what happened was the company that had the oncology product, it failed in phase three, and the stock price like dropped to $3.
So you were a big
So
fan.
I made, and that was my start. And I then was able to work with them on a number of their other, actually handle all of their international work. And one day I was having a dinner with some members of the board. I said, "I don't work with your competitors, but could you introduce me to other people in the life science?" And they did, and that sort of snowballed from there, which is how I've wound up doing life science work.
I mean, talk about starting with a home run, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, well, and then there was another company that they were going to invest in, and I told them, I said, "Okay, you hit a home run the first time. It's not going to happen." And it was a little bit better than break even, but not much.
Yeah,
But they were still happy with that. Yeah.
yeah. So we're here at the QNova Forum. What's your tie-in with QNova?
Okay, I've Jim Sergey, who's the founder of QNova. It used to be known as CSSI. I've known Jim for a long time. We got introduced by a next door neighbor, and Jim and I bonded because we both like to swim, and he invited me to swim with him in San Francisco Bay. Um, in early January, the water temperature is about 8 degrees centigrade. I had a wetsuit, fortunately, and we swam about 2,000 meters. It was the coldest I ever did, but we bonded with that. And then our firm, Jim asked us to assist. So we're outside legal counsel to QNova at the moment. And we refer a number of our clients to QNova to assist them, and Jim also at QNova also refers clients to us to help
we hear a lot about this, and we have heard a lot about this week. The importance of the trust network, so the trust broker, we're building an ecosystem here, and that's what Jim talks a lot about. That for him, it's important that QNova builds an ecosystem, and trust is something that always comes up.
Yeah, I mean, if you're swimming in San Francisco Bay with 8-degree water temperature, you got to trust the guy swimming next to you.
I guess so, and I'm glad your relationship's warmed up since then.
It's definitely warmed up.
Well, thank you for joining me today. In closing, when there's a lot of startups here, there's a lot of investors here. When you think about your firm, like what's one thing you want them to remember about your firm, and when they're thinking about when they need help?
I think, I think a unique characteristic of our firm is we are truly a unified firm, and we have known and worked with each other for a very, very long time. So anyone coming to our firm asking for services, they're coming to a team that has worked together for a long period of time. We've been together, and we're very happy to assist anyone with whatever they need to have us do.
That's great. Well, Stephen, I really appreciate your time today.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
It was nice chatting with you and hear about some of the war stories, if you call them. But I would love to sit down with you again next year. I think this is going to be something we try to do and hear about some more of the stories. The energy here this week has been just fantastic.
It's wonderful. Absolutely great. Very nice. Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for tuning in. This is Frew with BioBuzz.